Och ei, der guten Abend, ich bin Susie Wolff. Das Time has come für ich to say auf Wiedersehen to Motor and Sport. Das is right, pal. Ich bin retiring and going back to obscurity. Or as we say in Germany, DTM.
Hello, welcome to Gareth Jones on Speed. I'm Gareth, he's Richard.
Hello.
And will you welcome a return to Gareth Jones on Speed from Alex Guy. Hi, man.
Hello.
How you doing? It's the first time you've been in On Speed HQ. We spoke to you at Le Mans, but you do listen to the show. So
I do listen a lot. I've been with you in spirit for many, many years, so it's an unbelievable honour to actually be here.
It's a greater honour for us to have you on the programme. Otherwise, there would have been a gap, because Zog is editing, I think, isn't he? Editing his life today. That's why he can't be here.
He's a busy man being busy, and there was a slightly less busy man being not so busy. So hi, everyone.
With the number 13 on the back, here he is. As you know, you listen to the show. We usually start with a bit of F1 update, and in the last week we had Nico winning and the Mexican Grand Prix. Richard, which one of those two things was the better thing?
Well, the Mexican Grand Prix was the Grand Prix in Mexico. Not the most exciting race, but I like the look of it. It was all very jazzy on telly, and I liked the ticker tape at the end. Did I like the fact that all F1 journalists on Twitter and everyone who presented the television coverage kept telling you how much fun they were having in Mexico, only a week after they'd been telling us how much fun they were having in Austin?
I hate them.
And it becomes a little bit like, well, yes, fine, all right. But
Well, you do wonder whether they've just been having fun for a week, and they couldn't quite say, well, we got drunk in this place, and we got really drunk in this place, and then we got on a plane, and then we got really drunk in Mexico, and now, hi, welcome to Mexico. We've been having all of the fun.
I think they should have had peyote. I think they should have made the journalists have peyote and report on the race. It's like a butterfly. It's like Nico Rosberg was beautiful. I mean, that's what Mexico is all about, isn't it? I mean, have you been there?
No, I've never been
Have
to
you
Mexico.
been to Mexico?
I've never been to Mexico.
Oh, it's a marvellous place.
Really? I've been to the southwestern United States, and I've been to
Yeah.
a marvellous Mexican restaurant in North London. So I
You're
feel
in.
like I've been
Practically there, yeah.
Mole chicken with sort of chocolate sauce.
And you
on
speak
it.
the language and everything.
I do, yeah. Apparently so.
I went to a restaurant in Monterey once called the Baby Goat. I was invited to this restaurant, the Baby Goat. Great.
What do they serve there?
Yeah, exactly. That's what they served. And that was all they served. Baby goats. And as a vegetarian, it was a little tricky for me being there.
Baby goat, so as in lamb is baby sheep.
Yeah.
So just sort of tender.
Yeah.
The thing is, goats are...
There's no love in a
bellends,
goat's
aren't they?
eye.
Goats
Yeah.
are like the evil twin of sheep.
Yeah, they've got a darkness in the eye, haven't they?
Well, you
They
turn
do,
your
yeah.
back on a goat and it's chewing the bottom of your coat. So
Yeah, true.
I
Yeah.
feel like I'm writing a children's book accidentally. I turned my back on a goat and I found it was chewing my coat. But this is the thing, that goats are...
You are
they're
the
not the
Dr.
most
Seuss of the
likeable
farmyard.
of animals, are they? So, you know, if they want to offer up their offspring to a Mexican restaurant, then fair enough.
But they love their racing in Mexico. They supported IndyCar, and they've got like a Mexican version of NASCAR going over there. They love their motorsport. And most of the best American drivers are all Mexicans. So no wonder Austin was empty this year, and the new race in Mexico was full, because all the Mexicans who usually go to Austin stayed at home for the race. Or probably travelled back to Mexico for the race because they work in America. Like most. Did you notice the...
Most hastily backed out of that one before saying...
There was a gag, but then we stopped.
I
Always better
can't,
that way.
having
No.
worked on Top Gear, I can't say anything about
No.
Mexicans. Do you know, though, I can say something, because we got into a lot of trouble for saying some things about Mexico on the show, which we probably shouldn't have said, but there was a happy ending to that, which wasn't much reported. The reason it all kicked off is because the Mexican ambassador didn't normally watch Top Gear. However, he happened to be watching it that night and went, what? And I think some of the presenters might have said that the Mexican ambassador wouldn't be watching because he'd be asleep in a chair under a tree
With
or
a
something.
sombrero.
A bit dodgy about that.
I believe the word feckless was banned.
I was about to
Might
say
have been.
that.
Thank you,
Yeah,
Alex.
yeah.
But the Mexican ambassador turns out to be an extremely nice man, and although he was disgruntled at first, he realised that there was a point at which it was best if we all just made friends, and he invited the Top Gear presenters to the embassy for a drink, and he got them royally drunk on extremely high quality tequila. and they had a lovely
peyote,
time.
probably.
But boss, I couldn't say that, but I'm not sure you should say that the Mexican ambassador has his own supply of peyote in his London residence. But
it's the national
he's a
recreational
top man, and he just went bygones, and he got them drunk. And so, fair play to the Mexican ambassador. I don't know his name. I don't know if he's still the incumbent Mexican ambassador, but I always thought very highly of him for that.
You have to give someone credit. If someone has a pop at you and you just go, you know what, let's resolve this over an enormous quantity of alcohol.
Always the right way. That's how wars are stopped.
And if you still don't like one another
That
afterwards,
started.
at least you had a good to average night.
Yay! Did you notice the truck at Mexico, the camera truck for the podium?
Yes!
You did?
Yes!
Alex, I know you didn't see this.
I was hungover and in a corner weeping.
You'd been out with the Mexican ambassador again, hadn't you?
It does happen quite a lot. He's really lovely.
You can never say to your wife or girlfriend that you're going for a quiet drink with the Mexican ambassador, because you'll go, oh yeah, I know what he's like. Yeah, that guy. I did. It was a Ford F250, maybe, a mid-size one.
From what period, though? It was kind of...
From the 90s.
Yeah.
And it just sort of had, like, some crude scaffolding on the back, and they drove it onto the track to give the camera people the vantage point they needed for the podium, because the podium was not over the pits as it normally is. The podium was out sort of halfway round. Because I was thinking, what are they going to do?
Yeah.
Are they going to drive into the pits, and is there some kind of network of tunnels that will allow you to pop out in that baseball stadium? But no, the top three had to drive halfway around and then stop.
It was bizarre. They stopped the cars out in literally what was a baseball stadium area, didn't they? But the truck was magnificent because... You know how in Shanghai, the design of the circuit, if you like the backstage area, the paddock, is designed to mimic the Yew Gardens. It's classically Chinese. And in the Korean race, they've got this bridge over the circuit that mimics Korean design.
Covered in moss now, though, isn't it?
Yes, it's empty and bleak. But the Mexicans, instead of sort of mimicking their own culture, they actually turned up in a lovely battered old pickup and parked it in pole position. It was great. It's the classic sort of pickup that you see with those sort of wooden extensions on the back that allow it to carry anything up to, 1,000 watermelons or 20,000 Mexican labourers.
Well, I did think it looked like the kind of truck I've seen parked outside well-to-do properties in Los Angeles because somebody's having their garden done.
Exactly.
As they do in Los Angeles with Mexican people. In a large Ford pickup truck that appears to be held together with gaffer tape. And there was a bit of gaffer going on with that thing. But at the same time, I was thinking, well, what else were they going to do? Because they were in the middle of nowhere. There's no cameras, and that's the thing. The ideal camera vantage point was on the track.
Perfect.
Can't have a camera position there during the race.
Get
It
a
would be in the
watermelon
way.
truck.
So,
Yeah.
watermelon truck, problem solved.
But F1 is in good shape. I think going to Mexico is a great thing. I know you were sick of hearing about how much fun the journalists were having there, but it looked like a proper party. And of all the races I've seen recently, that's the one I really want to go to. Mexico. It wasn't a great race, but it didn't matter. They were having such fun chanting, Checo, Checo, for anything up to 6 hours.
Well, if there was one complaint I had about the Mexican Grand Prix, apart from the fact that it wasn't very interesting, was that all the other drivers didn't just let Perez go through and win. Because I think it would have made the atmosphere so enjoyable that it really wouldn't have mattered. If they'd just gone, what the authorities and what Bernie should have done is just say, look, do you know what? This is a no-points race. No one's scoring any points from this. This is just a good time race. It's like an exhibition race. It's a friendly, if you like they do in football.
The competition has been won.
Yes.
Let the man win.
Yeah.
Exactly. Just
Give
let
the people
Perez
what they
have his
want.
moment. Exactly. Give the crowd this moment of glory.
Well, Nico had his moment of glory on this occasion. One of those rare moments we managed to beat the driver you dislike most in Formula One. Is that fair to say, Alex?
Lewis Hamilton is an incredibly talented driver.
Fact.
I can never dispute his skill. It's just his general personality and being that I dislike.
Really?
Also, his fans. His fans do my nut in. I went to see a race, I think last year. There's a thing called Badger GP. It's brilliant. They assemble a large group of people in a room. You watch the race. There's quizzes, there's prizes. And I was trying to watch the race, and all the way around me, either side, people going, "Go on, Lewis!" And it just got to the point where I just wanted to hurt myself or them to make it stop.
Are you sure they were motorsport fans? They weren't fans of ITV detective-based dramas. Is it an ITV drama, Lewis? It was, wasn't it?
It was. Yeah,
It was a spin-off from Inspector Morse.
That's it. That was ITV, wasn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
I thought you were going to
sure?
say that they were enormous fans of 70s professionals actor Lewis Collins.
Oh, well, yeah, they are around. You do hear them screaming.
It would have been quite weird if they were shouting during the race, unless they were watching an old rerun of The Professionals on a different screen.
If they were on their iPads, but they were also wearing Mercedes quasi-futuristic silver clothing.
Oh, that's the clue.
But, I can't say anything against Lewis's driving. It's the way he conducts himself on various social medias. The whole Wimbledon thing just does my head in. Just learn how to dress yourself.
Or they were watching a very, very highly strung Celtic football match between two Scottish islands, and they were all incredibly partisan. It's possible.
It is possible. But no, he's an amazing driver. Just something about his very being irritates me. It's probably because I will never be as good as him.
So who's your favourite F1 driver, then? Somebody who clearly you think you're better than?
I will never think I'm better than this man, but it's probably quite...
I mean, from all time, not just current, but who do you like in F1?
Oh, no, I love Kimi Räikkönen. I want to give him a big hug, but I know he just kind of stand there static, looking at me going, what is he doing?
Please get off me now.
Leave me alone. I don't know what you're doing.
I will make it my work from now on to engineer a situation in which you're able to give Kimi Räikkönen an awful man hug, which he will not enjoy.
You know what? He might not, but I will.
And I think that ex-car viewers would relish seeing that, yeah.
I think they would. I don't think they like the fact that I don't like Lewis Hamilton, but I like him as a driver. The thing is, it's that horrible duality of, you're brilliant at what you do, but as a person, I don't think I'd enjoy being in the same room.
I've been in the same room as Lewis Hamilton, Clang, and and he was quite charming.
Is he?
Yeah.
Is he a nice person?
Yeah, I think he's all right, actually. This was in a Top Gear setting.
Right.
He was very excited to be on the show, and he was really nice. Good handshake as well.
Is it a strong handshake? Is it too strong, or is it just strong enough
but
to
you know
not
what?
make you feel intimidated?
Yeah, no, that's exactly that. It's the handshake of a man who knows he doesn't have to try too hard. You know, when you meet blokes and I read this about Richard Branson. He never shakes hands with people because he's sick of meeting men in lifts who go, Richard, I'm a businessman myself, and then they try and crush his hand to show how businesslike they are, and he can't bear it, so he always just goes hi and just sort of does a high five or something. Yeah, look at my sweater. And Lewis
look at
Hamilton
my amazing
had
beard.
Yes,
I'm like a lion, but moneyed.
Like a sexy Caribbean island-owning lion. But Lewis Hamilton had the handshake of a man who doesn't have to try too hard. I've also shaken hands with Valtteri Bottas. Now, there's a handshake that could chop logs.
Is it? It probably does.
In the same room, Felipe Massa. Soft, limp handshake.
Oh, that's disappointing.
That's all you need to know.
I shook hands with Michael Schumacher once.
Did you?
Yeah, it was a very, very disappointing experience.
Really?
He did not want to engage with me physically.
I've shaken hands with very few racing drivers. I've shaken hands with the Porsche Le Mans team last year's.
Oh, yes.
Webber, amazingly good handshake.
Yeah, I knew he'd have a good handshake.
He's got a good handshake. Brendan Hartley.
Yeah, an enthusiastic one.
An enthusiastic, slightly loving handshake.
Loving?
Interesting.
Oh, yeah. Dumas.
Yeah.
Strong, firm. He's the kind of guy that rallies GT3 RSs.
Was it dry as? Was it bone dry as well?
Very formal.
It was just
clear.
It was a bit crazy. That's what it was.
Really?
He was great. Also, Matt Howson from KCMG. Strong handshake. A winner's handshake.
If you've shaken hands with a racing driver, do write to Gareth Jones on Speed and let us know how it was.
Or subscribe to shakinghandswithracingdrivers.com.
That sounds so faintly mucky for some reason.
It sounds like a very distinct fetish that I don't want, but kind of have.
Hello, Adrian Newey here, your willing digital servant. I'm here to remind you that on the 16th of January 2016, Gareth Jones on Speed takes over the London Welsh Centre for an event called 10 Years on Speed. The evening will feature a live recording of a unique episode of the show, which you can take part in. There will be appearances by special guests, plenty of Welsh beer, risks, and for the first time ever a performance of on-speed songs by a live band featuring Gareth, Richard and Zach. And if I can find the right power adapter, I will be there too. 10 Years on Speed, You know you want to be there. Tickets go on sale in the second week of November. For more information, go to garethjones.tv. garethjones.tv. garethjones.tv.
Good morning,
007, you're late.
Sorry, I had a simply enormous amount of lager last night.
Well, pull yourself together, Bond. We've identified a new threat, and it's to Aston-Martin.
A threat to Aston-Martin? From who,
He's a lethal genius, and all our intelligence tells us he's out of control.
Blofeld? Drax? That chap from the film with the Renault 11 in Paris?
No, Bond. We believe his name is Pastor Maldonado.
Sniff Petrol! With Gareth Jones on speed!
I was fascinated to read this week that Renault, who reported to be taking over what was called the Lotus team in Enstone, have placed some of their staff already in Enstone. I think this is a mistake. They're doing due diligence at the moment. They're trying to work out whether it's worth them having the Lotus team, rebranding it as Renault like it was in previous generations. But I wouldn't put any money into this. I certainly wouldn't put my staff working there until that due diligence is over. Lopez, who owns most of that team, is a very shrewd businessman, and I reckon any due diligence could show that most of the team is owned by, I don't know, a dog registered in Dubai or something. I think Renault are a very tricky area there. Do we want Renault back in F1?
Yeah, I guess so. I'm intrigued about this because I suppose perhaps the Renault people, if this is true, they're doing their own due diligence. Maybe they've been given, as you do when you buy a house, and you get a list that says, oh yeah, the seller's going to include the curtains and these light fittings, and then you move in and you find that they've nicked them. And maybe they're doing that. Where it says you have this amount of carbon fibre, you do not. And also, I'd like to know the journalist who wrote this story, it's like how they figured out there are Renault personnel in there. Are they wearing like Renault branded jumpsuits? They're bright yellow, like from the 80s.
No,
they're going, there are an abnormal number of Lagunas in the car park. Why is that?
One of them has a Laguna Coupe. That looks like
No one bought a Laguna
Nobody.
Coupe.
No.
That looks a bit like an Aston Martin. I thought they were buying Force India.
Wait a second! There's a new Espace in the car park. That's not even sold in the UK. It's
it's
on
left
Parisian
drive.
plates. What are you playing at?
The local deli shops, the sandwich shops in Enstone. Oh yes, we had a chap in here the other day, lovely fella. He said he was from Oxon, but he had a very unusual accent. I don't know why I'm a brummie and I'm working over here, but we left the city for the countryside. There are going to be French people all over Enstone.
Escargot on a back. Didn't know what was going on, but it was delightfully said.
Sales of Gitanes have gone up 400%. Why would that be? Well, the journalist's gone, I looked through the window of the factory and a lot of the people who were talking were waving their arms around. I can only surmise that they're French. I was walking through central London today and I heard a lot of French being spoken.
Really?
Yeah, and genuinely, and I was thinking, for a period, I sort of felt like everyone I walked past was speaking French, which is interesting.
Renault are everywhere now.
They're everywhere. Yeah. It's a nice language to hear being spoken, isn't it, French? And I think it's quite a
Renault is
pleasant language to listen to.
watching,
But
and it knows you doesn't. What
are they up to? Maybe Renault's buying London instead
It
because
thinks we don't want an Espace. I want an Espace. Have you seen the new Espace? I saw one in a car park in Spain. It was great looking.
it's a nice looking car. Yeah. Did I say this on the show about I was poking around one and also that Talisman, it's the new Laguna that we're not getting here. And the interior, it's quite nice and it's got that portrait aspect, touch screen, which is going into loads of cars now and McLaren stuff that, didn't they? And it's always a very logical way of doing it in a car and it's nice and it all seems to work and the graphics are quite good, but it's just not quite there. It's not quite the full VW. And what brought it home to me was there's a little cubbyhole by the electronic handbrake and it's flock lined, like on a VW or an Audi. I poke my hand in it and I touch the flock and it's cut price flock.
Cheap
It's
flock.
It's cheap. It's market stall flock, and you just know. It's like if you cut the budget on the flock what else have you cut the budget on? Because let's not forget Ferdinand
not
Piëch,
expensive, is it,
the
Flock?
nut job who was in charge of VW and may yet be in charge again after his mysterious phone calls. He said that the reason the Golf had a Flock-lined glove box was so that people would go, wow, if they've spent this much time on the glove box, imagine what the inside of the engine's like. As we now know, the inside of the engine is lying.
Surprisingly economical.
Yes, exactly. Distract them with Flock!
So are we going to get a Renault Formula One car that's the cockpit's going to be lined with cheap Flock? Is that what you're saying?
Well, now, how much Flock is there in motorsport? And should there be more?
There should be more
There
Flock.
should definitely be more.
Yeah.
The inside of a Jaguar XJ's glove box is lined with purple.
Yes, as are the pillars on the XF, if I remember.
Purple Flock?
Yeah.
No, I just thought it was on. You could only have it as well, weirdly, if you
On the
ordered your
XFF.
XJ in black.
Oh, really?
And then you got the central bin and the glove box in purple Flock as a little nod to a Paul Smith suit.
Is that because Mr. Cullum likes Paul Smith?
I would guess so.
I hope so.
Yeah, it was a cheeky sort of, but disappointingly only on a black car. But the idea being it's like having a black suit with a bright lining. It's like, oh, look at me, how sober and sensible I am. And then, wah! Look how crazy I am. When
I'm
you
zany.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Formula One is undergoing small change at the moment. You see the way I discreetly pulled that back from Paul Smith suits? to
It was a
Formula One?
powerful link.
Oh,
It's good.
well, you know, I make no excuses for steering the ship into a wall. The
A harbour wall.
hey, very good.
With purple Flock all over.
Formula One is potentially changing again. Two things notable. One, the introduction, which we talked about, of this, what they're calling the client engine, which Honda rather wittily said this week that they didn't approve of. They didn't think it was a good idea. Why would that be, do you think, Richard? Any idea why?
I don't know. It's like owning a shop and going, yeah, we don't approve of selling stuff. And it's
Yeah.
not because we have no customers. It's just because we hate people. Yes, there's
Things
reasons.
to sell?
Reason for,
Why?
Yeah.
And the other one, which Alex mentioned briefly, was the threat of Aston Martin being the Force India team from now on. How do you feel about Force India? Do you care about Force India, Alex? Is it a team you could get passionate about?
Now, I couldn't get passionate about Force India, but a couple of my friends, John and Phil, many moons ago when I did a podcast,
Yeah.
they were deeply, deeply passionate about Force India. So much so that...
Hello, Finn.
So much so that my mate Phil bought... I know, it's a shocking story, Finn. So much so that Phil spent £65 on a Force India polo shirt that he thought was $25, but with all of the taxes and all the cost to get it from actual India,
Wow.
he got it, and he still wears it. It's a bit tighter than it used to
Why
be.
does he love Force India? I mean, you can understand people loving Aston Martin, Lotus.
I think it was the rest of it was years and years ago now. But he loved Force India. So the idea of his favourite Formula One team, and every time we watch a race, he kind of peels this thing on. But now the idea of it being Aston Martin and me being an enormous British car person, I might actually have to agree with him on the best Formula One team, which will obviously be Aston Martin Racing.
But how do you feel about a team which has got no historical links with a brand, in the way that the whole Lotus, what was Renault, what was Benetton...
That whole mess.
Yeah. How do you feel about Aston Martin being literally painted on a car which has about as much Aston Martin DNA as Simon Templar's car? You don't know who Simon Templar is, do you? Neither
Yes, the
of you.
Saint.
Oh, you
we
do?
We
Oh,
were
well
just
done.
talking about him
Yeah.
on the way here.
We were
cool.
actually, yes.
He never drove an Aston.
No, he drove a Volvo, which was made
Yeah.
by Jensen.
Yeah.
So badly that Volvo removed the contract from Jensen after way less than their required 10,000 units and took it back to Volvo land
Correct.
and made the
Series
P1800S.
That's right.
And then they made the ES, which was this horrible shooting brake thing that I'm sure you love.
Hold him! I want to punch him! Hold him! Hold him!
I'm sure
you
you
better
love, but it doesn't look good.
Oh,
Because
it is
they
gorgeous.
ate the
Come on.
wings up with a horrible roof box thing.
Fine, it's lovely.
No,
it's a hybrid.
not. No.
But you'd support the Aston Martin Force India team?
Oh, hell yeah, I would.
Richard, would you?
No. I don't
Oh.
buy it.
I'd be there waving the flag going, yay Aston, I can't wait for DB11. And at the same time we'd be going, Jensen, do well.
I just
hope.
what Jensen buying oh, I see Jensen Button.
Yeah.
I don't get this. I just don't see what benefit it has for them, because Force India are a mid-ranking team at best. And it doesn't reflect well on them. I sort of think that Aston Martin giving a load of cars and making a bespoke car for a James Bond film, and I know it's sort of hackneyed Bond and Aston Martin, but it is a
works.
well-known association.
Yeah.
That film will be seen all around the world. The car in that new Bond film is a spectacular-looking thing.
It is.
And did you see there was this leak? Oh, it's something that was actually... Remember when Sony got hacked and all the emails from the movie studio got out? There's something that people have gone back to now, which is that a mobile phone company offered to pay a load of money for Bond to have, I think it was Sony phones. And Sam Mendes, the director, and Daniel Craig obviously have a lot of executive power. And they said, we're not comfortable with this because we believe that Bond should only have the best. And we don't think these phones look like the best.
Wow.
Ooh.
So
And-
we're not happy with it.
And if you've seen the ads on bus stops and what have you, there's Moneypenny with a phone that is set
Well, I think
to
for money-
7 minutes past midnight because it's one extra zero, but it's close enough.
It's all horrible, isn't it? And there's that story as well that Heineken put in cash to all of the Daniel Craig films, but Heineken wasn't seen on screen in the first two because Barbara Broccoli said no because she hates the colour green.
Yes,
Have you heard this
I
one?
saw that.
I
Yeah,
know,
she
it's
can't
just-
stand the colour green, and it was only Skyfall that he was there swigging after a one-night stand on a beach hut, if I remember. Like swigging a beer, going, "It's 5 a.m. It's beer o'clock."
Well, exactly,
because
because
I'm that
otherwise,
kind of man.
I'm in a casino, I'll have a vodka martini, shake. Actually, do you know what? No, screw it, I'll just have a lager. It doesn't work.
Can I get Heinebrew? Because I really can't be bothered with all the time. It takes a lot of time.
It's really humid outside. I'll just something to quench my thirst. I'll just have a fizzy lager, please.
Yeah.
And then maybe a vodka martini later. But that's the thing. The sort of Bond association with all the coolest and the best, and Aston Martin, that's a good association.
You know
but
what?
Formula One, plodding around in the middle, sometimes accidentally bumping into somebody else. You know, at the moment, it seems like Mercedes are doing quite well as a Formula One because, of course, they're the best and the top and the tippity-toppitest, and it's good. And Ferrari, they kind of make their own world, don't they?
Ferrari is Ferrari.
You know what would happen, though? Wouldn't it? If Aston did become the new brand for the Force India team, they'd have to continue some sort of ownership, the way that these things work in Formula One. No one ever completely absorbs a team anymore. You kind of take it bit by bit. I'm concerned that Bond will end up having to drink Kingfisher Lager in the next film as a result.
Well, Bond Goes for a Balti is the working title of the next film. Bond's been seconded to Sutton Coldfield, and he's just meeting some mates for a curry on Broad Street.
All right, James, should we go for a rugby and talk about the plan?
Yeah,
Now,
exactly.
that's a film I'd watch.
Welcome to the announcement of the very latest lightweight Yamaha sports car project using the unique lightweight technologies developed as part of the Lightweight iStream project created as part of a vision for a lightweight future envisioned by the very master of lightweight thinking, whom we welcome to the stage right now. Ladies and gentlemen, the lightweight visionary Professor Gordon Murray. Oh, he's floated away.
Gareth Jones on speed.
I think as a kind thing to do to our new co-host on the show for tonight, that we ought to hand over this section of On Speed to something that you used to do on your podcast.
The Gas Station Podisode was a podcast, but an episode of it. So we mashed them all together and it became a podisode. But it was a section we called, in the style of Gandalf the Grey, Cars What We Have Droven.
And of the cars what you have droven recently, what is the second best one?
Oh, the second best one. The thing is, I've driven 3 in the last week and a half.
Oh, that's a good start.
It was lucky and immensely stupid, and I'm mostly exhausted. But would you like to hear about the Audi R8, the Mazda MX-5, the new one, and the Mark 1, because those can be mashed into one very wonderful ball, or the 911 GT3 RS, the new one?
Let me just have a conversation with my associate, Mr. Porter, regarding this. If we talk about the Porsche, Zog will never forgive us.
It's true. I am kind of intrigued about the Mazda.
I'm also slightly intrigued in a very weird way about the Mazda because it's sort of attainable and it might be something that our listeners might actually go out and buy.
Ask him to talk about that.
All right, I'll test him up. Alex, would you talk to us about the Mazda?
The Mazda, the Mark 1 or the Mark 4, or a little bit of both?
Both,
A
actually.
little bit of both.
Do you love the Mark 1?
Before last Thursday, to my eternal shame, I'd never driven one. I'd driven a Mark 3 several times.
Right.
And it was good fun.
Yeah.
But it was only in town. But I managed to find myself on a track with a Mark 1 and a Mark 4 and my limited driving skills. And the chap who owns the Mark 1 said it's one of the oldest ones in the country and it's mid-restoration, so whatever you do, don't drive it too hard and keep it on the temperature gauge. The steering might go.
Sounds like a classic British sports car. They have certainly captured
might
that.
go.
Haven't
What?
A little bit, yeah.
Where?
He bought it 10 years ago for about 1,200 quid. And he's kept it for 10 years. And it's basically been his let's go out and have fun. So he just messes around in it.
Was it a UK car?
Yeah.
Oh.
A really early UK car.
Not a BBR turbo.
No. Pure and unmaintained until very recently. And I've had fun on tracks. I've had fun in cars. But that thing was brilliant.
Why?
It's a 10/10 car.
Oh, okay.
You can do whatever you want to it.
Yeah.
And because it has such little power and because it's so springy and wobbly, you can be an idiot like me and put your foot in and hope for the best, and the best just happens. The back will go out and then it'll just come back in going, you've had your fun now. Enjoy it. Now straight line, just over there. Just up there, there's another corner over there. We can do this again. It was brilliant.
Richard always says that MX-5 owners, probably most of them, never driven anything else. I remember you saying, and they wax lyrical about these cars. Remember you saying, you said this on this very show. That was you. You're the guy with the beard who does Sniff Petrol, yeah? It's you?
Am I? Oh, go on,
Yeah.
anyway.
They can be infuriating. I've never driven.
I don't remember saying any of those things.
Yeah, David Stebbings will know exactly at what point in which episode
Step up,
you actually
Stebbings.
said that.
I don't remember this.
Yeah, it was early on, I think. But I've never driven one, and that was the first time you'd driven one.
First time I've driven a Mark 1. I've driven a Mark 3 before, but it was only round town, and it was good fun, but I didn't quite get it. It was when I had free rein to do whatever the hell I wanted.
Yeah.
With no one saying, don't do that, apart from watch the temperature gauge because it might explode. Then I got it.
Yeah.
You have to drive one, and you have to drive one within your limits, because I'm not a driver. I don't do the helmsmanry and the sideways. I just can't do it. But you could push it, and you could play with it, and it was such a tactile experience. Because the whole story behind the MX-5 is that a motoring journalist said to a Mazda exec, you should make a car like the British sports cars of old.
Yep.
And they went, whatever. And then he was working for them, and they suggested this, and then magic happened. The next thing you know, the MX-5 appeared, and the cliche goes, the best British sports car is actually the Mazda MX-5. And it's actually true.
It's not really a Japanese car, it's an American car,
Yes.
really, isn't it, the MX-5?
Yeah, the original one was designed in California. Bob Hall, wasn't he? Was the American journalist.
Yeah.
But the new one is shorter, narrower, and
Definitely
more gorgeous
shorter.
than any MX-5 that's gone before, isn't it?
It's an angry-looking thing. It's a grumpy-looking thing, but I kind of like that.
Uh-huh.
And the one I had was the 2-litre Sport Nav, and it was in the red that you see in all the adverts and all the billboards. And it had a sat-nav and DAB radio and heated seats. The sat-nav on the way to Wales, on the way to our track, decided, because we went through an average 50 speed limit zone somewhere on the M4, and it decided that everywhere afterwards was an average 50 limit zone. So for about 40 miles afterwards, it was telling me to slow down because I was doing 70. And even when I was doing 4 miles an hour in a service station to get a coffee and have a wee, it was telling me I was going too quickly, even while stationary. I wanted to punch it.
Justifiably. Did you have the roof off at every opportunity?
No, because I'm a pansy.
No, I don't believe that for 1 minute.
You've met me.
True. Actually, I believe that for 2 minutes, yeah.
Can't blame you for a second. But the new one, what they need to do is make sure each iteration of MX-5 feels just as brilliant as the last one. And this new one, having driven one of the very earliest and one of the very newest back to back, it's still got it. It feels a little safer. It feels a little quicker because it's got a bigger engine. This one had the 2-litre, 160, what have you, engine. But it felt so good. You could play with it. You could toy with it. You could feel everything it was doing. It was lovely.
It's the first MX-5 in 3 generations that I've looked at and thought, oh, yeah, that's nice. I thought the previous ones had really lost it in a bizarre kind of same thing happened to the Nissan Micra kind of way. You know?
Yeah, it looked a bit amphibious, that last
Yes,
one.
a nice description, yeah.
Because I didn't like, because weirdly, I can fill in the gaps on the MX-5s you haven't driven, because I've driven the Mark II, my first experience of the MX-5, when they were contemporary, and I just thought it was fantastic. Particularly, they did a special edition, sort of quite vibrant blue paint. It was the first one that had the 6-speed box, and it was just lovely. It was a fabulous little car. And then that Mark III came along, and it just felt a bit flabby somehow.
See, the pre-facelift Mark III had that lovely little face that looked like, was it the Ibuki concept? This is like
Yeah,
proper
something
way back
like
when.
that.
They had that kind of happy little...
Yeah, they grin.
That happy little face, and I love the look of it, but the later ones, they sorted out the handling and made it a bit better and a bit lower and a bit less wobbly and wibbly and horrible. That one looked a bit rubbish, I think. I wanted the look of the pre-facelift and the feel of the post-facelift, but now I want a Mark IV, but I also want a Mark I because they're actually quite cheap.
Yeah.
1,500 quid if you work hard to find one.
Oh, I think you can get for
that's
less than that.
Yeah,
There'll
you
be
can
lots
get
of
for a lot
Crocs,
less,
can't
but you
But
have to work very hard to find one that tops
a really good one.
1,500 quid.
A mate of mine's got one. He's got a late Mark 1 in British Racing Green. And
Tan interior?
No, because I think that was only on the Japanese cars or special editions. They did a million special editions, didn't they?
Yeah.
There was an MX-5 California, the MX-5 Sasquatch, the MX-5 Miasma.
Sasquatch!
Badger stain.
Well,
And they went limited edition crazy in a way not seen since the Citroen Saxo. And
Or the Mini.
Or the Mini, yes.
The Mini
or the Citroen AX. Or, yeah.
The Mini Camden, the Mini Pimlico, the Mini...
Stoke Newington.
Stoke Newington, yes.
It's got a wheatgrass beer bar in it. But the MX-5 that my friend's got, it's got loads of miles on it, got a little bit of rust bubbling through, and he keeps saying, I'm going to get something different, maybe I'll get a newer MX-5, and he just can't get rid of it, because it never lets him down. He sent me a text the last time he had it MOT'd and serviced because of how little it cost him, and we worked out that perhaps give it a couple of years and the car will actually be making him money, because it seems like it's almost defying all logic on how little it costs to run, and he loves it every time he drives it. What to get except just keep it?
They are appreciating in value. Mark 1 MX-5s are getting more and more valuable, not by much, but by enough.
So he is making money on it. Damn you, Chris Richards!
Given a usable rear-wheel drive chassis, some medium intermediate level technology, a roof that comes off and a good engine, how come people love the MX-5 more than the BMW Z3, now a Z4, and anything else that may have tried its hand at competing?
It's just not as simple.
No.
The first Z3 went wrong because the tyres,
it was you know,
a huge steering wheel and really fat tyres, which meant it had loads of grip. And actually, one of the brilliant things about the MX-5 when it's good is that, as you've found out, it doesn't have a lot of grip. It has enough grip.
It has enough grip, and when it
but
loses
also
it,
has
it
power.
finds it again, just enough so you don't die.
Yeah, because you're not going so fast that it doesn't stand a chance of scrabbling around, and because of the power it doesn't have. Yeah, it's like the GT86. I think everyone said, oh, GT86 needs more power. Put more power in it, it wouldn't be as good a car.
I'd love to drive a GT86, one in proper anger and two with more power, to find out whether that's not true, because every time I've driven one, it's been brilliant to a point, and then you're like, well, shouldn't this be trying to kill me now? And it just doesn't. It just keeps going, even though it's on Prius tyres. I know a lot of people who've had a lot of fun with them.
Yeah, me too.
At the same time, I still think the MX-5 edges it out.
I'm going to have to drive one, aren't I?
You really are.
Actually, what I'd really like to try is the, what are they calling it? The RX Vision. RX-7 Vision? What are they calling it?
I think it's just RX Vision at the moment.
RX Vision.
But then it turns out
looks like a Mercedes, that one.
A bit. Sort of
also
maybe send a check to Ian Callum if you've got a minute kind of car, And, but do you know, there was a quote in maybe Autocar or something, the boss man of the whole RX thing, I think has got a little bit of some sort of numerical OCD, because someone said, well, you're going to call this car the RX-9, and he went, no, because RX-7, that had 2 seats, RX-8, that had 4 seats. If we called it RX-9, what's it going to have, 6 seats? And it's like, well, no, that doesn't make any sense.
It's going
what
to
are
be
you
a
talking
name
about?
of a car, you
What
moron.
sort of mad integer in your head dictates the number of seats related to the name? What, they're going to call it the DB11, that new Aston-Martin? It's going to be a coach? What's going on? I think he might need to have a rest.
What's the other one they do? The CX-5 and the CX-7. The CX-7 came out first with 5 seats, but then the CX-5 came out also with 5 seats.
I think he has a miserable time at work thinking about those cars. An MX-5, it should have 1 seat or no seats. I can't work this out. No, Qantas never crash.
That's what I thought too. You've been listening to Richard Porter.
Goodbye.
To me, Gareth Jones, and to Alex Goy.
Bye.
Nice having you, Alex.
Thank you very much for having me. It's a genuine honour to be here. So hello, listeners, and probably goodbye, listeners. Actually, more goodbye.
Isn't it nice? Thank you for having us and everything. Isn't it marvellous? See you.
To send us an email, see pictures, get song lyrics, join our Facebook fan site, follow us on Twitter, or to find out about sponsorship opportunities, go to garethjones.tv. Gareth Jones on Speed is made in London by Whiz Bang.
Gareth Jones on Speed!